Thank you so much for doing this interview with me, especially because as we speak, um, a tradition is going on. A tradition that kids throughout Toronto, Canada, Ontario, whatever province you're in, North America, they're all dealing with the same thing. And it's kind of like what's sort of back here on me and sort of on here, a famous Jackson 5 song. They're going to be dealing with their ABCs because they're going back to school. You would know a lot about this because not just as a child, but there's another reason why you know a lot about this.
That's right, Rudy. I am a teacher. And so, as a parent and as a teacher, back to school is a lot of fun, um, regardless of what people might think. Back to school is so for a lot, it's a rite of passage with, going into first day of kindergarten or the first day of high school. There's a lot of things, a lot of mixed emotions for parents and students alike.
How do you? I'm just curious. Before we start talking about some of the things that we mentioned we were going to talk about, how do you mentally prepare as a first grade teacher, but then also have to prepare your own kids as a mother?
Right. So Rudy, it is double duty when you are a teacher, a working mom, and and you have all these things to kind of balance and take care of. I think the first thing is always to be organized. Yeah, and still have some time for flexibility. You don't want to, wrap up the summer 2 weeks before it's done, but you also then want to prepare yourself, like you said, mentally by just, sleeping, eating right. For us teachers, a lot of us go in 2 weeks or a week before just to set up our classrooms, making sure that's welcoming, inviting. You want to make sure that your classroom family for the following year is welcomed into an environment where they're going to be, able to grow and be nurtured and thrive and all those different things, right? So it is really important. I know for my own kids, Rudy, and they're grown now. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, but they laugh at me a lot of times
Wait a
because
second. How are you looking that young, having such old kids? Are you sure you're not renting them or something?
no, I started teaching at 22 years old.
Wow.
My first grades were like I taught grade 3, grade 8. I've taught every grade from kindergarten to grade 8. So shout out to all my former students in our classroom family. But yeah, I've got a 19-year-old who's in second year and a daughter who is 16 and she is going into grade 11. So yeah, it's a very busy time back to school, but if you ask them, we never missed a first day of school. So as a teacher, you actually miss those days, right? You miss those milestones, those moments. I would dress them up like at 5:30 in the morning and go to take our pictures, and you can see the sun rising. It was really something. I'd have neighbors going, "Where are you all going?" I'm like, "It's the first day of school. I really don't want to miss it." So I think that's really important as teachers, as educators, not to miss those milestones, which we tend to do. So that's where it becomes bittersweet, right? Because you never stop being a parent, but you also really never stop being a teacher.
Well, let's talk about this because as we speak, this interview is actually going to be posted on the first day of school. So, for the parents, what do you think the parents should be doing as they are preparing their children for the first day of school?
So because this is already going to air when the first day of school happens, changing up your routines. So getting back into the school routines, making sure that there's a space to, drop off your things at the end of the day. For my kids, they used to have like a snack at the end of the day when they came home, before dinner time, just to kind of, it's a good talking point. So you never want to ask your children, like, how was the first day? It's almost like, you need a loaded question. You need something that starts off with, like, tell me something about your teacher, or who are the friends in your class. So kind of make it interesting for them to kind of engage in conversation instead of how was your first day of school, which they'll say like, oh, it's great or fine, right? So especially as they get older, you want to continue to engage them in those important conversations.
Now, what if you have a child who comes home and say they find out that they're being bullied? Because no, all kids are always trying to put kids in a certain bracket. And what if your child ends up being the one that's bullied? What do you think the parents should do?
So bullying is really tough. That's a tough one, Rudy, because as you know, it's been a focus in schools across Canada, wellness and just making sure that kids feel like they belong. That's really a big part of the curriculum right now, is making sure that children feel not only just welcomed, but they feel like they belong to something bigger than just the classroom. So when a child does come home, um, saying the words like bullying or I'm being bullied, parents have to take it very seriously. And I know the public sector, has put some light on it um, as well. But as a teacher, it's really concerning because you never want a child to feel like they don't belong in a classroom, right? And I know we've all been there, whether it be, I grew up in Mississauga back in the 80s. And so, there's one of those times when you might have felt bullied, but you didn't have a word for it, wasn't really talked about in school. You'd come home and tell your parents something was happening, but it wasn't really addressed. Whereas now it's taken very seriously. Always try to say, like, in every classroom, you don't want to see that child that's playing by themselves or the child that's just alone in the corner. Like, you have to find out as an educator what is happening to that child. And that's really what that is like, they're not going to tell you the first day that something's happening, but they might say, hey, this is what happened last year. And there's those engaging moments where you can actually talk to your child, right? Like, if something happened last year and they're still carrying that trauma or carrying that information with them, that means like you need to really take them seriously.
Very, very true. Now, depending on, of course, the age of the child, could
Mhm.
be a teenager like what you have, and whatever. Um, is it fair for parents to ask right off the top, "Do you have homework?"
I would say the first week of school, like, or even maybe the first couple of weeks of school, it's really to get to know the children that are in front of you. So a lot of teachers might give homework, but it's really homework to get to know the child, right? So, like, your favorite foods or your favorite things to do at recess, or what you like about the summer. So a lot of times it's kind of like get to know you activities. I wouldn't call it homework, but it would be fair to ask if there's homework. I think it's good to get into a schedule. I used to tell my students all the time that if you don't need a study table or places where you need a different room to study, but you do need a quiet, clean space, right? A spot where you can lay out your things, whether it be a laptop, books, whatever you're coloring, whatever it might be at whatever age level, but just somewhere where it's your space where you can kind of reflect upon your day, your school day.
Now, this is probably already happening because the kids have gone to school, but should there be preparation on, if the kids are going on their own, if they're taking a school bus, you know, really making sure that both parties understand what the schedule is going to be like. So each person knows where the other is going to be. And if one is lost, what do they do?
Right. So, Rudy, you've just mentioned a teacher's worst nightmare, right? Dismissal time, especially for the younger kids. For grade 1 students, for example, that's something we talk to parents about, just a drop off. So, making sure that your child obviously knows their name, knows who their teacher is, and they might not even remember the teacher from today, but they are probably have to remember the teacher from the previous day. We've had situations in different schools across the country where students taking for the bus for the first time, so going over bus safety, going over just what a stranger is, because sometimes a stranger isn't somebody that you don't know. It could actually be somebody that makes you feel strange. So those are all things that are so important. Safety 101 with our kids, but also safety 101 for our parents, like, just to remember, be mindful that during pickup time, like, making sure that being patient with the teacher, because they might not recognize you. They might not know, okay, but you just saw me a few hours ago, but you also then saw, another 30 other parents. So it's kind of like just being patient with each other, just to make sure that our children get home safely.
Absolutely. Something we talked about just before we got on camera. And of course, I'm way too old for it because when it came to the word technology, it was really this calculator that you sometimes could use. But even before that, there were, I won't even mention what the things were because the kids would be going, what are you talking about? What things moved up and down on a piece of wood and whatever? They would not know what I'm talking about. Technology, how do you feel about how it's being either implemented or not being implemented? Meaning, of course, cell phones and things like that.
So, Rudy, with education now, like, if you're not using technology, then you are further behind. It really does depend on what grade you're in. But at the same time, with a lot of the school boards have put stipulations on the use of cell phones, for example, in the classroom for non-educational purposes. So there are things that we would obviously require a lot of technology for even wrapping up knowledge or using it to project information. But a lot of times technology, just like a pencil is technology when you really think about it. So the right use of technology in the classroom is really what's important. And again, relaying that information. There's also been over the years a lack of use of technology because of the different types of needs and things happening within the school system, right? So a lot of times too, you're at a disadvantage. So I would say, if as long as it's used properly and with supervision, there's always use for technology these days. So we need to make sure that our kids are up to par with the rest of the world, that they're going to be, part of the global market. So I don't think that there should be something wrong with it. It's when it's misused.
Now, as a teacher, again, depending, of course, what your grade is, what are your expectations for the students and the kids?
So Rudy, I talk a lot about the invisible backpack. So those are
Hmm.
the things that you actually cannot put in your child's backpack. Those are the things like kindness, and those are the things like being empathetic, being being a good person. Like, I think those are the things that you just want them to come with, and you get to fill that backpack throughout the whole year. A lot of people think that our profession, obviously, it's 10 months with your child, so that's a real gift for me. I think that's why I take the career and the calling so seriously, because it's 10 months. And so what you come in with your backpack, I hope to fill that with a whole bunch of new things for your child, and not physical things. Like I said, it's the things that you know, you can't really put a price on. So those are the things really that I hope that their parents have filled their backpacks. And my job with them is to continue to fill the backpack for the rest of the year.
Last question. What's the message do you have for all the students, especially maybe the first ones going to school for the very first time? What is the
Yeah.
message that you have for everybody going back to school?
I think just be yourself. I think the best thing about being at school is that people that you get to see every day, your friends, they become your classroom family. So that's such an important thing. And again, I think that's why I've been a teacher for 26 years. The last 26 years have gone by really quickly, I have to say. But some of my most fond memories aren't necessarily the things that I taught on a regular day. It's more, the things that you get to walk away with. It's when those moments become memories. So things like your bigger graduations and your milestones, but even the class trips, the excursions, but maybe even like the funny inside jokes that you have as a classroom family. Those are big things, Rudy. When you get older, you start to realize, and when they come back, like students have come back multiple times just to say thank you. You never see it in fruition sometimes, because like there's so many students that teachers get an opportunity to teach, but you just hope that they pass that along to that, where when they become parents or when they become teachers or educators. So that's really, it's really truly like, honestly, I don't know anything else that I would want to be doing in September is getting ready for back to school.
Thank you so much for this interview. And more importantly, thank you for the advice. And last thing is, welcome back.
Thank you, Rudy. We'll see you soon.